Welcome to This Explainer. We're diving straight into the chaotic and deeply tragic events that unfolded on a summer weekend in what is normally a quiet California field. This is a story about what happens when the digital world suddenly and dangerously spills over into physical reality.
To really grasp the sheer scale of the chaos here, we have to start with this number. Over 300. That's the estimated number of teenagers and young adults who gathered in the pitch black in an open field in Morgan Hill, California. Just picture that for a second. Hundreds of people, no lighting, no official security, totally off the radar of local authorities, all packed into a single unlit space. And tragically, that massive, unsanctioned gathering ended with 7 people getting shot. It literally turned a quiet, rural 2-lane road into a scene of absolute terrifying panic. This wasn't just a party that got a little out of hand. It was a mass casualty event that changed a community in a matter of seconds.
Section 1. A deadly birthday bash.
So this was definitely not your standard community event. This was a viral pop-up party. It was promoted entirely on social media by a San Jose content creator and Twitch streamer who goes by the handle @NateDebates. Online, it was just billed as a birthday bash. But here's the crazy part. They held it in this open field near Hale and Miramonte Avenues without a single county permit. And get this, the property owner, they were completely in the dark. They hadn't rented the lawn out. They had absolutely no idea it was being used to host hundreds of people.
Now, what makes these events so incredibly hard to police is the stealth. Pop-up parties rely on absolute secrecy so they don't get shut down before they even start. In this case, the actual location wasn't even posted online until just a few hours before the party began. And once kids got to the area, they were being guided in the dark by literally handmade signs taped to poles with little arrows pointing toward the field. This flash mob style of gathering makes it nearly impossible for local authorities to step in or prepare any kind of crowd control beforehand.
Section 2, Anatomy of the Chaos. This timeline right here brilliantly illustrates just how fast things can fall apart when you have zero infrastructure. At 10:15 p.m., authorities get a call. The complaint? Intoxicated people in the street and someone throwing bottles at passing cars. Seems like a pretty standard nuisance call for a Saturday night, right? But look at the next timestamp. 10:16 p.m., literally 1 minute later. Santa Clara County Sheriff's deputies pull up for that noise complaint at the exact moment multiple gunshots ring out. You can imagine the logistics of the scene immediately turning into a total nightmare for first responders. Sheriff spokesperson Brooks Jarosh hit the nail on the head describing the bottleneck. Law enforcement showed up to face dozens of cars parked in an open field, all frantically trying to peel out onto a small, rural, 2-lane road, right as deputies and paramedics were desperately trying to rush in to save lives. It was just gridlock and panic. And we can't forget about the neighbors who were caught up in this. Local residents were absolutely terrified. Imagine sitting in your quiet house and suddenly hundreds of fleeing teenagers are sprinting through your yard. As neighbor Zoe Gonzalez mentioned, seeing a massive crowd running for their lives in the dark is just an incredibly stressful, terrifying experience for the families who happen to live right next door. But for the kids actually trapped in the crossfire, the experience was visceral and deadly. Listen to this account from a San Jose teenager named Jose, who was actually at the party. He was standing maybe 10 or 15 feet away from a victim when the shooting started. He dropped to the ground, and when he looked up, he witnessed the horrific reality of the situation right in front of him. He knew right then how bad it was. That's the level of trauma these young adults, many around 18 years old, are going to carry for a very long time.
Section 3. The human toll. The crucial point is that behind the chaotic timeline are real human lives. The sole fatality that night was a young man named Desiderio Romero V, who went by Desi. To his friends and family, he was affectionately known as Pepper. According to a GoFundMe set up by his loved ones, he was a beloved son, brother, and friend. He's survived by his parents and 3 sisters, who remember him as a guy who just brought love to everyone around him. And his life was abruptly cut short in that field. And the heartbreak doesn't stop there. 6 other adults suffered severe injuries in the shooting. The gunshot wounds were really serious, striking victims in the abdomen, ankle, and shoulder. Now, while 2 were fortunate enough to be released from the hospital shortly after, 4 others remained hospitalized for days, fighting to recover from critical, life-threatening injuries. Section 4. The ongoing investigation. So, where does law enforcement even start? Well, preliminary evidence shows a handgun was used.
Because the crime scene is literally a massive, dark, open field, detectives had to bring in canine units to comb through the grass overnight and into the next day just to hunt for shell casings. Now, some attendees, like the teenager Jose we mentioned earlier, talked about suspected gang ties being a factor, but the police have firmly stated they have no confirmation of that yet, treating it as an isolated incident. The biggest takeaway here, though, 0 arrests have been made. Detectives are calling this a very lengthy and complex homicide investigation. Even with all the challenges of an outdoor crime scene where hundreds of potential witnesses fled in the dark, the sheriff's office is making it unequivocally clear they are taking this incredibly seriously. Sheriff Robert Johnson stated they're going to work tirelessly to bring those responsible to justice. They're actively hunting down witness videos and pleading with the public for any tips that can help blow this case wide open. Section 5, the social media danger. This brings us to a huge, lingering issue that allowed this tragedy to happen in the first place. There is a stark, dangerous difference between community events and viral pop-up parties. Think about it. Traditional events take months of planning. Permits mean safety plans, official security guards, EMS access, and community awareness. Pop-ups, they are the exact opposite. Fueled entirely by social media clout, they rely on anonymous location drops to pull massive crowds to unsecured places. There is literally 0 infrastructure to handle an emergency when things go south. And in a truly dystopian twist, this modern danger was actually broadcast live. The Twitch streamer who promoted the whole thing was live streaming the party to his followers. The broadcast captured the exact moment it turned deadly. You could hear the loud pops. At first, the streamer actually mistook the gunshots for harmless fireworks, which perfectly highlights that crazy disconnect between a digital celebration and the lethal reality unfolding in real time before the channel was finally deleted. Which leaves us with this final, provocative question. As our digital and physical worlds keep crashing into each other, how can communities prevent these viral pop-up parties from ending in tragedy? When social media clout can summon hundreds of kids to a dark field in a matter of hours, how do local authorities, property owners, and parents adapt to actually keep people safe? It's a really complex problem, and one that Morgan Hill, and honestly communities everywhere, are now forced to grapple with. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.